Hi guys. I am getting a delay, so I know this is like really awkward. I'm gonna try to do it now and we'll see what happens. Um, so bear with me. Everything's a learning curve, writing, um, just living in the time that we're living in now. So we'll make the best of it, right? So I wanted to read to you guys today a little bit from my book, The Night Diary. And I also wanted to tell you a little bit about who I am as a writer. This isn't my first book. My first book was actually this book called The Whole Story of Half a Girl. And then I wrote a chapter book series called Phoebe G. Green. And there are 4 books in this series. And I'm really excited that both of these books are going to be given a whole new cover and look to them and are going to be coming out this fall. So that's really exciting that they're sort of getting these new lives. And then mostly what I'm going to be talking to you today about is this book and sort of talking about my writing process, kind of seen through the lens of what I did with The Night Diary. So The Night Diary is about 12-year-old Nisha, a girl who has to leave her home during the partition of India in 1947. And one of the main reasons that I wrote about this time is because my father also had to leave his home during that time, and he went from what is now Pakistan over to the new border of India with his family. And it was a really scary, difficult time. And this was when India split into 2 countries, Pakistan and India, that we know now. And so there were a lot of divides that happened during this piece of history. And there was a lot of tension mostly between the main religious groups in India, Hindus and Muslims. And there was a lot of talking in the new India. India was gaining its independence in 1947, and that was a really triumphant time for India. But there was a lot of discussion about how to make it an equitable space for everyone, and how would that work? And so there was the question of, can we be united India the way we've always been with many different religions, or how do we sort of split up space so everybody kind of gets what they want and the power that they want kind of equally. But unfortunately, when we separate people based on religion, based on race, kind of in the name for everybody to sort of, well, you'll have your space and we'll have our space and it will be fine. It never works, as we see over and over in history. And what happens is people, when they're sort of put in different groups, turn against each other. And that's really what happened during the partition. So my father grew up in a community that was diverse as far as religions go, and many different religions lived side by side peacefully. And then once those lines were drawn and people felt like they were supposed to be kind of on one side or another, that's when a lot of fighting and rioting happened. And people who had lived in certain areas, both over the new border of India and in Pakistan, felt like they had to leave for safety and leave their homes that they had possibly lived for, in generations. So I grew up hearing about this story and what my father's family went through. And I grew up in a small town in Connecticut. So it wasn't something that a lot of people knew about. And I didn't learn about it in school. So I continually asked myself the question, why don't more people know about this? And I didn't know I would grow up to be a writer. But when I did, I felt like it was important to try to shape a story around this time. And I really wanted to try to write it through a younger person's eyes, to really ask the questions that I had of, why did so much violence happen during that time? Why did people turn against each other? And just really understand what it felt like for just an ordinary family going through an extraordinary time. And even though what we're going through now with the pandemic is very, very different, it's still a time that I think nobody imagined they were going to go through. And so now we're in this very different space very quickly. And kind of how do we feel about that? So I am going to read you a few samples of the book and then leave you with a prompt today. So I'm going to read you the beginning, and this is the beginning where Nisha doesn't know that this is going to happen yet, and she's just kind of in her regular life. So I'll start with, it starts, the whole book is in a diary format, and this is the first date. July 14th, 1947. Dear Mama, I know you know what happened today at 6 a.m. 12 years ago. How could you not? It was the day we came and you left, but I don't want to be sad today. I want to be happy and tell you everything. I'll start at the beginning. You probably already know what I'm telling you, but maybe you don't. Maybe you haven't been watching. I like turning 12 so much already. It's the biggest number I've ever been, but it's an easy number, easy to say, easy to count, easy to split in half. I wonder if Amal thinks about you on this day like I do. I wonder if he likes being 12. We woke up at a little before 7. Amal and I usually sleep through our birth minutes, and then when we wake up, we stand next to the last mark we etched into the wall with a sharp rock. No one else knows it's there. I do it for Amal and he does mine, and then we compare how much we've grown since the last year. Amal has finally caught up with me. Papa says someday Amal will tower over all of us. That's hard to imagine. Papa gave me your gold chain and a small ruby stone hanging from it. He started giving me the jewelry when I was 7. Now I have 2 gold bangles, 2 gold rings, small emerald and gold hoop earrings, and the ruby necklace. Papa said I should save the jewelry for special occasions, but lately there are none. So I wear all the jewelry at once and never take it off. I don't know where he keeps all of it, but each year on my birthday, another piece appears at my bedside in a dark blue velvet box with gold trim. When you open it, the blue satin lining winks back at you. Papa always asks for the box back after I take out the jewelry. Secretly, I want the box more than the jewelry. I want it to be all mine and never have to give it back. I could find any old thing, a pebble, a leaf, a pistachio shell, and put it in the box. Like magic, these things would get to be special for at least a day. Maybe he'll let me have it when your jewelry runs out. I want to tell you about this diary I'm writing in. Kazi gave it to me this morning wrapped in brown paper, tied with a piece of dried grass. He never gives me gifts on my birthday. I once read an English story where a little girl got a big pink cake and presents wrapped in shiny paper and bows for her birthday. I thought about the little gifts Kazi gives us all the time, pieces of candy under our pillows, or a ripe tomato from the garden sliced, salted, and sprinkled with chili pepper on a plate. Cake and bows must be nice, but is there anything better than a perfect tomato? The diary is covered in purple and red silk, decorated with small sequins and bits of mirrored glass sewn in. The paper is rough, thick, and the color of butter. It is not lined, which I like. I've never had a diary before. When Kazi gave it to me, he said it was time to start writing things down, that I was the one to do it. He said someone needs to make a record of the things that will happen because the grown-ups will be too busy. I'm not sure what he thinks is going to happen, but I've decided I'm going to write in it every day if I can. I want to explain things to you as if I'm writing a storybook, like the Jungle Book, except without all the animals. I want to make it real so you can imagine it. I want to remember what everyone says and does, and I won't know the ending until I get there. So that's in the very beginning. And now I'm going to read you a place where they, Nisha realizes they have to leave. And it's when they kind of embark on their journey, and they're just she's just sort of in shock that this is actually happening. So she's sort of trying to figure out kind of how she keeps somewhat grounded as this really scary thing is happening. And she has to leave her home. And also they have a cook in their family named Kazi, who I mentioned, who she deeply loves. He's really a family member, and he teaches her how to cook. And she's very shy, and she doesn't like to talk to people outside of her family. So cooking is a way for her to express herself without having to talk. And he's sort of, her father's a doctor, and he's not around that much, and he's not the most sort of nurturing person. And Kazi kind of serves as the second father to her. And he's Muslim, and her father is Hindu, but her mother, who's no longer living, is Muslim as well. And so that's who she's writing to in this diary. And she's leaving behind Kazi now because they have to separate. But also she's leaving the home that her mother lived in, even though she never knew her mother because her mother died when she was born. So there's a lot of leaving that's happening that's really a part of her, but because she has these two identities and her country is being split in half, she wonders, where does she belong in all of this? So they have started on their walk. And she's observing what's around her. We didn't walk through town. It was too dangerous. We walked through shaggy fields of prickly grasses until we found a clearer path toward the desert. There were people behind and in front of us. Some people had ox carts filled high with belongings. Some people rode camels. We carried less than everyone else around us, except for the water. We each had a large jug that would last us a few days before we would need to fill it back up. Papa carried two. Papa told us before we left to keep our heads down and not to talk to anyone, no matter who they were. Dottie walked close to me. Dottie is her grandmother. She told me I must keep myself covered as I could with my shawl, that I'm bigger now and strange men can't be trusted. I didn't tell Dottie this, but I only trust 4 people in the world anyway. I trust Papa, Dottie, Amal, and Kazi. And you, Mama, I trust you. It feels like we're really in a story now. I've heard about stories like these, about people who flee their homes in a war with nothing but the clothes and food on their backs. But that's who we are. Now that's who we are, even though there's not a war here, but it's like a war. It seems almost like a made-up war. It makes each footstep I take feel numb, like my foot isn't actually touching the ground, like I'm not in my body. We had to leave our chess set. We also had to leave my old doll Dee. Deepu Auntie gave it to me when I was 2, so I called the doll Dee to remind me of her. When I walked, I thought about Dee, thought about her frayed orange and gold sari and the red color painted on her tiny lips. She even had little gold earrings dangling from her ears and a green jeweled bindi on her forehead. I suddenly missed her so much that my chest hurt, even though I hadn't played with Dee since I was 10. She had sat in the corner of in the side of my room to keep watch over me and Amal. Now she would probably be taken by a new girl who would find her. So I'm just going to leave you with that, those pieces. And the prompt that I wanted to talk about today was just thinking about the past and the present, and how every character has a past, right? And they sort of carry that past with them in their present self. And then how do you sort of make sense of that if there's a real clear before and after, right, in your life, where everything you kind of knew, you were going along and this is what you expected, and then suddenly everything changes. And you're not sure what sort of the kind of future space will look like and sort of who you will be in that space. So you're kind of in this present, but you're sort of unsure. And what you can think about is sort of who you were before and now who you are after, who you're becoming after. And we all have many times in our lives where sometimes we realize we're in that, like right now, right? Our lives have changed very quickly and we're in this kind of present space. and we're not sure what we think about it, and there are, you know, concerns and anxieties and hard things. And so we know what our lives were before, and we're not quite sure what our lives are going to look like sort of after this time. So we're kind of in that past and present space where we're dealing with two selves in a sense. So I thought that was kind of an interesting idea. And I saw this funny video, it's actually a funny video, of a woman who's trying to explain what was going on right now to her past self, who's just like oblivious to all of these things and kind of the new things that we do, like on Zoom or grocery shopping and masks and all the things that we've adopted into our lives. And her past self is trying to explain it to her, I'm sorry, her present self is trying to explain it to her past self. So I thought that would be an interesting writing exercise through the diary form, because that can be a really intimate form. You know, Nisha writes, the reason I wanted Nisha to be writing in a diary is because she had trouble talking to people outside of her home and sort of saying everything she wanted to say. But in her diary, she was going to sort of say and feel whatever she wanted to feel. So I thought I could leave you with this prompt where you could do sort of a diary entry, and it's your present self or a character. It doesn't have to be you exactly. It can be a fictional character talking to the character or you, your past self. So it's your present self writing a diary entry, trying to explain it to your past self, or a fictional character doing it to their past self. So it's sort of like, dear past self, this is what's going on today in my life right now. And you can write an entry and see where it takes you, see if it maybe develops into something more, or it's just a one-time thing where you're kind of seeing how you would explain what's going on and what you're feeling to somebody who just a few months before had no idea, but you're the same person, or the character is the same person. So I'm going to leave you with that. And I want everybody to stay home, if you can, stay safe, stay healthy. Sorry for the technical problems in the beginning, but I'm glad that I could spend some time with you today. So thank you. And bye. See you soon.